In the vast tapestry of American society, where cities and suburbs bustle with modern conveniences, there are pockets of land where nature retains its untamed charm, and rural communities thrive on age-old customs. In such isolated places, small towns often share an unspoken agreement of mutual respect and autonomy. A world away from the influence of metropolitan laws and norms. The Crocodile Pond Case, which unfolded in such an area, is a grim reminder that even in places where simplicity prevails, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. This case, marked by betrayal, greed, and a chilling disregard for human life, sheds light on the complexities of human nature within a uniquely American context. The setting: rural America. In rural America, particularly in the southern states, the land itself holds stories, traditions, and a sense of mystery. Towns are small and close-knit, where generations of families live on the same plots of land, their lives intertwined with nature and history. People know their neighbors well, they attend the same churches, send their children to the same schools, and often gather for local events that reinforce communal bonds. Yet, despite this sense of unity, there can be an undercurrent of tension. Social and economic disparities sometimes create a divide, with wealthier families holding influence over the local economy while others live modestly, often relying on seasonal work or small businesses. In the American South, water bodies, particularly swamps and ponds, are surrounded by a sense of mystique. Many locals carry an almost reverential fear of these waters, especially those that house crocodiles or alligators. Such creatures are often seen as symbols of danger and, at times, justice, a natural force that punishes those who disrespect the land. These beliefs, steeped in folklore, are interwoven into the community's perspective on morality and consequence. Introducing the criminal, a man named Randall Stokes. At the center of this case is a man named Randall Stokes. Randall grew up in a neighboring town but eventually moved into the quiet community where he would later become infamous. His early life was marked by struggle and ambition, coming from a working-class family. Randall learned early on that survival required both grit and cunning. As a young man, he worked various jobs, developing a reputation for being a tough, pragmatic individual, someone who knew how to make money when opportunities arose, even if those methods occasionally skirted the line of legality. As Randall grew older, he married into a family with some wealth and land, gaining a sense of social status that he had previously lacked. To the outside world, Randall appeared as a self-made man, the embodiment of the American dream. He projected an image of stability and respectability, frequently attending church and participating in local events. But those close to him noticed a growing sense of entitlement and ruthlessness. He was known to be short-tempered and manipulative, willing to exploit others for personal gain. Over time, Randall's ambitions turned darker. He began to exhibit a fascination with power and control, traits that became more pronounced as he gained influence within the community. Rumors circulated about his involvement in various shady deals. But in a town where loyalty often trumps the law, these whispers rarely reached the authorities. Randall managed to cultivate an image of a successful, if somewhat harsh, businessman. The social dynamics that fueled the crime. In the American South, respect and reputation are highly valued, especially in small towns. Randall was acutely aware of this and made efforts to appear as a benefactor to the community, occasionally making donations or helping fund local events. However, beneath this charitable facade lay a man who thrived on the fear and dependence of others. He was known to hold people's debts over them, using financial favors to manipulate those around him. The locals' reluctance to question Randall's methods reflected a broader trend in communities like this, a reluctance to disrupt the social order. Even when injustices become evident, Randall's relationship with his family also played a significant role in shaping his character. His marriage, initially seen as a union that elevated his social standing, began to deteriorate as his ambitions grew. His wife, once charmed by his drive, became wary of his increasingly unpredictable behavior. Friends and neighbors noticed the change but chose to keep their distance, maintaining the social niceties that are so deeply ingrained in Southern culture. This community's reluctance to confront personal issues head-on allowed Randall's behavior to escalate unchecked. The turning point. The events that led to the infamous Crocodile Pond case were set in motion when Randall's financial troubles began to surface. Despite his outward appearance of success, he had been involved in several failed investments that left him deeply in debt. Desperate to maintain his image, Randall turned to more drastic measures, seeking ways to secure his future, no matter the cost. His obsession with power and wealth had reached a point of no return, driving him to make decisions that would forever alter the lives of those around him. At this time, Randall began to view his wife's family's land and assets as a potential solution to his financial woes. He knew that her family's estate included a large plot of land with a pond notorious for housing crocodiles, a place that locals avoided out of respect for both nature and superstition. This pond, with its ominous reputation, became central to Randall's plans. In his mind, it was the perfect setting for a scheme that would eliminate obstacles to his inheritance while diverting suspicion away from himself. Randall's descent into criminality was not sudden, it was a gradual erosion of his moral boundaries, shaped by years of unchecked ambition and a belief that he was untouchable. He began to manipulate those around him more aggressively, setting the stage for a series of events that would culminate in a crime so shocking that it would forever haunt the community. The role of community silence. One of the most striking aspects of the Crocodile Pond case is the role that silence played in enabling Randall's actions. In rural American communities, there is often an unspoken rule against interfering in others' affairs, a code of privacy that respects personal boundaries. This culture of silence can, at times, create a protective shield for those who abuse their power. Randall exploited this social norm to his advantage, knowing that few would dare question his actions openly. Neighbors and acquaintances, who might have suspected that something was amiss, were reluctant to come forward. Some feared retribution, while others felt it wasn't their place to intervene. This collective silence allowed Randall to operate without fear of exposure, reinforcing his belief that he was untouchable. It wasn't until the full scope of his actions came to light that the community would grapple with the consequences of their unwillingness to confront the truth. Conclusion of the introduction. The Crocodile Pond case, from its inception, was shaped by the unique social dynamics of rural America, a world where tradition, reputation, and a culture of silence can sometimes enable darkness to flourish. Randall Stokes, a man driven by ambition and an insatiable hunger for control, is a product of this environment. His journey from a struggling young man to a respected yet feared figure in the community reflects the complex interplay of individual ambition and societal values. This introduction sets the stage for a deeper exploration of the case, one that would eventually unravel the secrets of Randall's life and the grim decisions that led to a crime both horrific and deeply symbolic. The investigation unfolds, a criminal pursuit in the heart of rural America. The case of Randall Stokes, dubbed the Crocodile Pond Case, would soon captivate the public and haunt the law enforcement officers who pursued it. In a tight-knit community where silence was the norm, an official investigation was an uncommon and unwelcome intrusion. Yet as suspicions around Randall's activities escalated, authorities were forced to act, digging deep into a world of deception, manipulation, and meticulously calculated cruelty. Initial discovery and community shock. It all began with an anonymous tip that reached the local sheriff's office. The caller reported unusual behavior from Randall Stokes, mentioning his strained relationship with his wife and alluding to financial troubles that had taken a mysterious turn. Though reluctant to pursue a high-profile figure like Randall, local authorities couldn't ignore the gravity of the claims. This community's quiet demeanor masked a deep undercurrent of curiosity and apprehension. And soon, the investigation gained traction as whispers and rumors spread throughout the town. The investigation started simply. Officers questioned Randall's neighbors and relatives, who were initially hesitant but eventually disclosed fragmented details. Randall's sudden wealth, his tense marriage, and his dealings with less than reputable characters all pointed to a deeper, more sinister story. Despite the vague testimonies, the suspicions began to solidify, painting Randall as a man who was far from the charming community figure he presented himself to be. Uncovering financial motives. One of the first angles detectives pursued was financial. They accessed Randall's bank accounts and traced his recent activities. What they found was a complex web of loans, failed investments, and signs of debt hidden beneath a polished exterior. Randall had been living beyond his means, accumulating a mountain of debt, much of it tied to risky ventures that had backfired. Investigators suspected that his desperation to maintain his social status had become an all-consuming drive. But this wasn't just about money. Investigators delved into Randall's psychological profile, uncovering his intense need for control, reputation, and influence over others. His finances were merely the tip of the iceberg, concealing deeper motives that would later prove to be critical in understanding his descent into crime. Psychological profile and motive. As detectives pieced together Randall's financial woes, a forensic psychologist joined the team, bringing a fresh perspective on Randall's mindset. Through interviews with acquaintances, former friends, and even estranged family members, they uncovered a pattern of manipulation and narcissism. Randall wasn't just ambitious, he was ruthless, viewing people as mere pawns in his larger plans. His ambition had evolved into a dangerous obsession, blinding him to the consequences of his actions. The psychologist's evaluation was chilling. Randall displayed traits of sociopathy, charm on the surface but an utter disregard for the welfare of others beneath. His manipulation extended even to his family, where he used financial support as a tool to control and intimidate. Those who had initially been charmed by his drive and success now spoke of him as a man who demanded loyalty and obedience, exploiting those closest to him. These insights added another layer to the case. Investigators began to see Randall's potential motive as twofold: a desperate need for financial stability coupled with a deeper psychological need to assert his power. This combination was volatile, pushing him toward increasingly reckless decisions. The discovery at the pond. With suspicions mounting, the investigation took a dark turn when detectives learned about Randall's frequent visits to a secluded pond on his property. A pond notorious for its crocodiles. The pond, shrouded in local superstition, was rarely visited by others, a fact that Randall seemed to exploit. Witnesses claimed to have seen him near the pond late at night, a peculiar habit that aroused further suspicion. Some locals speculated that he used the crocodile-infested pond to dispose of incriminating evidence or worse. Upon receiving clearance, a team of officers and forensic divers initiated a search of the pond. The atmosphere was tense as they sifted through the murky waters, each diver aware of the pond's dangers. What they found sent shockwaves through the investigative team. Fragmented human remains, heavily damaged and partially decomposed, were recovered. Forensic experts identified signs of trauma consistent with blunt force injury, suggesting foul play before the remains were left to the crocodiles. This discovery transformed the investigation from a suspected financial crime to a homicide case. The small town, already abuzz with speculation, fell silent as news of the pond's grisly contents spread. Randall was now the prime suspect in a murder case, and the investigation intensified. Interrogation and Randall's psychological unraveling. With mounting evidence, detectives brought Randall in for questioning. During initial interrogations, he maintained a calm, almost unbothered demeanor, exuding the charm and confidence that had characterized him for years. However, as officers pressed him with details from the pond, his composure began to crack. Randall's responses oscillated between deflection and anger. When confronted with evidence of his financial troubles, he lashed out, accusing the officers of harassing him due to his success. His psychological profile suggested that any threat to his perceived control would provoke a strong reaction. And this was evident in his shifting behavior. Detectives played on this, strategically revealing evidence to provoke him, carefully pushing his psychological boundaries. As the interrogation continued, Randall's demeanor changed dramatically. He began to show signs of agitation, his responses laced with contradictions and inconsistencies. His facade of confidence wavered, revealing the fragile ego beneath. Investigators suspected that Randall's unraveling wasn't just due to pressure but stemmed from his deeply ingrained belief that he was above suspicion. This psychological vulnerability would prove crucial as the investigation pressed forward, gathering forensic evidence and a breakthrough. Meanwhile, forensic experts analyzed the remains recovered from the pond. DNA testing confirmed the identity of the victim, linking the remains to a missing person connected to Randall. This breakthrough provided detectives with the hard evidence they needed to tie Randall directly to the crime. Further analysis of the injuries on the bones indicated that the victim had likely been incapacitated before being discarded into the pond, a calculated move that underscored Randall's cold, methodical nature. Investigators also discovered traces of chemicals on the victim's remains, substances commonly used in certain forms of household cleaners. This led them to suspect that Randall had attempted to destroy evidence before resorting to the pond. A search of Randall's property uncovered containers of similar substances, further implicating him in the crime. This mounting evidence left little room for doubt. Yet Randall continued to maintain his innocence, his psychological state deteriorating as the weight of the evidence closed in. The psychological game, breaking Randall's defenses. As the case built up against him, detectives employed a psychological approach, leveraging Randall's personality traits to break down his defenses. They knew he thrived on control and power, and by consistently undermining his authority and introducing doubt, they began to erode his self-confidence. During the crucial interrogation session, detectives presented Randall with damning evidence, including photographs of the pond remains, hoping to provoke a reaction. The tactic succeeded. Randall's composure finally cracked, and he reacted with visible rage and frustration. Detectives observed his agitation, seizing the moment to suggest that they knew more than he thought. This psychological strategy led him to inadvertently disclose details that had not yet been public knowledge, inadvertently confirming his involvement in the crime. The arrest and Randall's final collapse. The mounting evidence, combined with Randall's increasingly erratic behavior, led authorities to arrest him formally. The community's initial shock turned to a mixture of relief and horror as the reality of Randall's actions came to light. The arrest marked the end of his control, and the psychological toll of the investigation became evident. The once confident figure now appeared broken, his composure entirely shattered. In the final stages of the investigation, forensic psychologists were brought in to evaluate Randall's mental state. They concluded that his drive for control and power had reached a pathological level, ultimately leading him to commit the crime in a desperate attempt to maintain his status. The pressure of his financial situation and the unraveling of his carefully constructed image had driven him to a point where he believed himself untouchable, blinded by his own hubris. Conclusion of the investigation phase. The investigation into the Crocodile Pond case was a blend of meticulous detective work and psychological insight, illustrating the complexities of a mind consumed by ambition and greed. As the community came to terms with the darkness that had lingered so close to home, the story of Randall Stokes became a cautionary tale of unchecked power, manipulation, and the haunting consequences of a life driven by an insatiable need for control. Conclusion. Reflections on the Crocodile Pond Case. The Crocodile Pond Case stands as a haunting reminder of the depths to which human nature can sink when ambition, desperation, and moral corruption collide. Randall Stokes, once a respected member of his small-town community, used his charm and influence to mask a darker, far more sinister persona. His story is not just one of personal downfall but of a community's reluctance to see beyond appearances, where silence and adherence to social norms enabled his deceit to flourish unchecked. At its heart, the Crocodile Pond Case reveals how ambition, left unchecked by conscience or consequence, can destroy lives. Randall's drive for power and control over others pushed him to exploit those closest to him. Viewing relationships as transactional and people as pawns, the crocodile-infested pond, ominously lurking on the edges of the community, became not only a physical setting for his crimes but a chilling symbol of his cold-hearted approach to achieving his goals. Randall's fate was a stark warning of the dangers that arise when one's need for power eclipses the boundaries of morality, transforming him into a man willing to take lives to satisfy his ambitions. The case also holds a mirror to the culture of silence and deference in tight-knit communities, where maintaining harmony can sometimes lead to a refusal to confront uncomfortable truths. Randall's neighbors, friends, and even family members, who suspected his darker inclinations, remained silent, bound by a reluctance to disrupt the social order. This silence allowed his behavior to escalate, demonstrating how societal norms and individual responsibility are deeply intertwined. The people's unwillingness to question Randall's behavior highlights a broader issue in such communities: the tendency to overlook troubling signs, only intervening once it is too late. In the aftermath, the town faced a painful reckoning with its own role in enabling Randall's crimes. While Randall alone bore responsibility for his actions, the community grappled with the uncomfortable reality that their collective silence had contributed to the tragedy. For the town, the Crocodile Pond case was a turning point. A story passed down as a cautionary tale about the imp,